Well, hello again. I'm literally the only person left inside St James's Park, and the only thing I can hear are shutters being closed behind me there in the distance. So I better be quick, otherwise I could be locked in here overnight. Saying that, there are worse places to spend the night. I've always found a certain majesty inside empty football stadiums, and wow, look around this place. It's no different. I think it's part of the just knowing what has gone before. When only 2 hours ago, there were 52,000 in here, and Aleksandar Isak scored that winning goal just over my shoulder there in the Gallagher end. But what a lot to unpick. I wish I had longer than I did. I do want to get out of here, to be honest. But yeah, Rafa Benitez always did say that Aleksandar Mitrovic gave away needless free kicks. I don't think he ever quite expected him to give one away from his own penalty, though, and that really was quite an incredible moment. And afterwards in the press box there, we debated among ourselves, which of the two Aleksandars do you lead your report on? Is it Mitrovic or is it Aleksandar Isak? And by the way, click on the link below in this video and you will be taken through to my Daily Mail match report. Please click on it, please read it. And yeah, I just thought that the bigger story, as brilliant as Aleksandar Isak's goal was from a Newcastle perspective, I just thought the manner in which Mitrovic coming back to Newcastle, missing the penalty, I'd never seen anything like it before. I just thought it was quite incredible, really. And he knew it as well, didn't he? When he ran away afterwards, in the seconds after that, he knew he'd clipped the ball onto his own foot. And I think the only time I've ever seen that before was Bolo's ending for Middlesbrough, and he ended up winning the cup final on the back of it. But in a VAR world, he was never going to get away with that, and it was game changing, wasn't it? Now, Marco Silva, the Fulham boss, now he thinks the real game changing moment was the referee and the guys in the VAR studio, their failure to send off Dan Burn in the seconds before Kieran Trippier's foul on Bobby Reid. Dan Burn it was a crazy passage, wasn't it? Dan Burn had tripped, or what looked like, from my vantage in the press box, had what looked like a blatant trip on Andres Pereira over there at the Leazer's end, as the camera just readjusts. And yeah, on play went. A few seconds later, Kieran Trippier, then it looked as if he'd fouled Bobby Reid. To me, like I say, from my position, it looked two pretty blatant penalties. On play went, and you knew it was going to be called back, and you just knew that one of them would be awarded. Now, the danger from a Newcastle perspective, certainly if the first one was awarded, was that Andres Pereira was through on goal and Dan Burn would probably have to be sent off. Now, that was Marco Silva's argument, and I know where he's coming from. Where I disagree is that, having seen a replay myself, and the guys in the VAR studio clearly agreed, was that Pereira had gone down far too easily, and there wasn't enough evidence of that being a clear error. Whereas there was on the second one. Kieran Trippier's challenge was clumsy, and the penalty was rightly awarded, and then rightly disallowed in what was just quite an incredible moment, but gave us guys a story. And I always talk you through the sort of the mechanics of how we're thinking in the press box with regards to reports and all the rest of it. And it's 0-0 now. 0-0s aren't great if you're a reporter, but nonetheless, we had a tale, and I'm sat there between Luke Edwards, Martin Hardy, and we're saying, even if this finishes goalless, we've still got a story. Mitrovic back at Newcastle doing what he did. We'll settle for that. But if you're being greedy, you probably want a winning goal, and we got it, didn't we? And of all the players to get it, Aleksandar Isak, and the manner in which he was set up by Callum Wilson, paired for the very first time. Of course, that's the first time they've been on the pitch together, and I just think as well, given the injury to Bruno Guimaraes and the absence, or certainly what will be a dearth of numbers in midfield, perhaps that would be an avenue, a route Eddie Howe has to explore a lot more in the upcoming weeks. Aleksandar Isak just off Callum Wilson with a 4-2-3-1 formation, and I think the manner in which they combined for that goal, Wilson challenging at the far post and having the presence of mind just to flick it across for Isak to head in from a couple of yards out was a tremendous moment for Newcastle and for the player as well. Bearing in mind, he spent the last 4 months on the sidelines, and has cut a pretty lonely and frustrated figure whenever we've seen him around the place sort of during that time. That goal will do him the world of good. And what of Newcastle and the performance? Well, I didn't think it was great. I thought they were far from their best, really. I certainly thought the first 15-20 minutes, the whole field just had it just felt like a really sedate Sunday 2 o'clock kickoff, which is exactly what it was. But you know, I thought Joe Linton, Eddie Howe's big call in playing him after the drink driving charge, I thought Joe Linton was key to that, and certainly Sean Longstaff as well probably had one of his best games for Newcastle this season. And in the end, I think if any team was going to win it, it probably was Newcastle, who just about deserved it. And the manner in which they're digging out those results now, you know, in a match, as I say, when they weren't at their best, but to make it, you know, taking them back up to third in the table, and what is it, a 12th match unbeaten. And I think Eddie Howe, in doing so, became only the second English manager in the 21st century to go 12 matches unbeaten in the Premier League. The last one, Alan Pardew, here 12 years ago. Now, in that season, Pardew took Newcastle into the Europa League, finished 5th, and you know, that was rightly celebrated as an achievement. I honestly think now, if Newcastle finish less than 4th, there will be a tad disappointment attached to it. And I say that after examining the league table, after looking at the fact that Liverpool and Chelsea at the halfway stage now are 10 points behind Newcastle. They're not going to reverse that. You know, I don't think they were starting off scratch. They would get more points than Newcastle in the second half of the season. So I certainly don't expect them to reverse a 10-point deficit. The one danger maybe is Tottenham, but Tottenham have just lost to Arsenal, and that's 5 points, you know, behind Newcastle, and they've still got to come here to St James's. So no, this felt like an important win in that regard, because I think three goalless draws on the spin might just have had the effect of halting momentum a little bit. So to get that winner at the end there, don't underestimate the importance of it for Alexander Isak and for Newcastle too. Now, other news, we've just come from Eddie's press conference there, the injury to Bruno Guimaraes. Now, quite why he played on for 5 minutes, you know, before half time, when he was clearly struggling. You know, quite why he played on after the initial injury, I'm not entirely sure, but Eddie admitted that sort of 5-10 minutes before half time, maybe he should have taken him off. He's going to go for a scan now, and I think it was the language Eddie used was quite telling when he said that Bruno was still, I think, in some discomfort and wasn't at all happy with the injury after the game. And he said, quote, you know, that is never a good sign. The question I then asked of him was, you know, all window, Eddie has said that they will only react in terms of the market when it comes to assessing, you know, the fitness of players they have available. Now, if Bruno's going to be out for a period of time, and instinct tells you that he'd certainly be looking at a period of weeks at least on the sidelines, then that perhaps might just give Eddie the case he needs to go and knock upstairs and you know, look for midfield reinforcement, especially given they were already light in that area without injuries, you know. So yes, that's one little newsy item to emerge from the press conference there. And you know, stay logged on to Daily Mail Online over the next few days, and we hopefully bringing you more on Bruno Guimaraes as and when we get it. But yeah, just to reflect on this day, because yeah, I think they are trying to chase me from here now. Yeah, after what was, you know, I say a fairly sedate opening hour when we feared we didn't have a great deal to write about, that last half hour and the drama that unfolded was crazy, and plenty in there for you to unpick in my match report. So yeah, guys, thanks again for listening, thanks again for watching and for reading. Please stay tuned to all the usual channels, and I'll be back later in the week when we're looking ahead to Crystal Palace. Okay, thank you, bye bye.